Welcome to the Be Bold Now pre-show. I'm Nikki Smith, one of the co-founders of Be Bold Now. We're here to celebrate IWD and the achievements of women and their allies around the world. Our lineup of speakers and performers tonight is just incredible. Before we get started, we want to help you limber up and get in the mood. To get us up and ready, we have the first of our talented list of women, Pam Dibs. Pam is a comedian, a coach, and a founder of Dibs on Life. She is on a mission to help us all take humour seriously, empowering audiences to live, love and lead with more clarity, courage and more chuckles. And who wouldn't want more chuckles in their life? Pam's client roster includes Microsoft, Costco, Boeing, Nike and Columbia Sportswear. Pam also runs a successful aviation filming and production company with her husband. With so much spare time on her hands, Pam recently also founded the Good Death Project, a movement based on the idea that a good death requires a life well lived. So let's get started with the brilliant and courageous Pam Dibs.
For the more discerning among you, you may notice a very slight accent. I'm from the south of England. When I first moved here, I thought, well, America can't be that different to England. I mean, we speak the same language after all. And then I found myself in a grocery store asking where the aluminium foil is. I'm going to say that word again. Aluminium. You see, it took me 30 years to learn how to say and spell the word aluminium. And then I come to America and find that America has just decided to drop some of the letters. You went from aluminium to aluminum, and even that was too much, so you just went for tinfoil. And can you tell me, where are all the U's? From innocent words like colour, neighbour, behaviour, even my favourite word, humour, has just had one of the U's dropped. You know, if we did this, we'd be calling this country the Knitted States. Anyone else here suffer from getting older? It's kind of happening every day. You know you're getting older when your sports injuries occur by fluffing up your pillow at night without warming up first. And when you turn 50, it's like you trigger an emergency warning system. Suddenly your calendar fills up with doctor's appointments and colonoscopies. Before I was 50, my husband used to give me advice about which cute shoes to wear with my sexy dress. On colonoscopy day, his advice: don't trust a fart, love. It was really, really good advice. When I turned 50, I also didn't expect to have inadvertently opened a super supplements franchise in my kitchen. Although it is quite possible I did sign up for a franchise and then just forgot about it an hour later. But don't despair. If you ever want any relief from any of your symptoms, just book a doctor's appointment. Because on the morning of any doctor's appointment, all of your symptoms will just disappear. I've now made random doctor's appointments, just trying to fool my menopause. Ah, menopause. From the nose up, my hair is falling out and thinning, and then showing up elsewhere uninvited. Energy is now a limited commodity not to be distributed at random, and my client invoices now include an energy drain upcharge. Maintaining an even bed temperature has become a science. I do everything I can to stop my husband's radiator-like body heat crossing my side of the bed. I have to regularly remind him, darling, please keep to your side of the bed and honor the precise and mutually agreed upon demarcation line. Otherwise, it could be quite bothersome. There it is, my British rage. I'm so sorry you had to witness that. Have you ever thought about what it would be like if men had the same symptoms as women do at menopause? It would be called menopause, and it would be this amazing rite of passage, this exciting time in life. If a man had a hot flash in a meeting, he would rip off his shirt, and people would automatically appear to mop his brow and remember names for him. A hot flash would be a signal, a moment of deep, deep wisdom and insight. Everyone would gather round and applaud him. Men would brag about them. Hey, Carl, how many hot flashes have you had today? Only 2? I've had 7 and it's only noon. But hey, you know, I have a feeling you might have some more tomorrow. You're so welcome. There would be special beer made with estrogen kickers, and Ford would manufacture an F-150 menopause special edition pickup. If any of you had a chuckle in the last few minutes, not that I would know because we're in a studio, but I'm just going to assume you have. You just gave your brains a treat. But you know what? A bit of research that blew me away recently showed that it takes adults on average 2.5 months to laugh the same amount that a 4-year-old does in 1 day. I think we should try and change that tonight. What do you think? Laughter has all of the brain benefits of exercise without any of the spandex, which might be a really good thing right now for me, because in a very bizarre coincidence, every single item of my clothing appears to have shrunk since the pandemic. One of the reasons I love this Be Bold Now event is because it's an opportunity to unplug from our daily autopilot, take a few hours to reflect, celebrate, and be truly inspired and empowered. All my life, I've been told that I'm so bold, so fearless. And you know what? The fearless title has just never resonated for me. This is me wing walking on a biplane. Now, while it might look a little extreme, you tell me a safer way to travel during the pandemic. Socially distanced, clean air, lots of legroom. They're going to be doing specials on this at Delta soon. But you know what? The daredevil acts aren't necessarily the kind of boldness we want to focus on tonight. This pandemic has asked a lot from all of us. And women have taken on the bulk of the adaptation needed. So we're going to ask you to use the chat now, so get ready. And we want to take a moment to celebrate how we have been everyday bold during the pandemic. So let us know in the chat which of these statements resonate with you. And I'm going to ask Sharon to come up and join me. So the first one, drop an H in the chat if feeling like a hot mess and getting out of bed anyway resonates with you. What about for you, Sharon?
Absolutely. I have definitely had some bad hair days during the pandemic. Thank goodness there's a great excuse. My camera's not working today.
Ah, yes, yeah. This actually reminds me of last week when I caught a glimpse of myself on Zoom and I thought, Pam, you've still got bed hair. And it was 4 o'clock.
Well, Pam, the chat's heating up. Lots of H's out there.
Oh, yeah.
I see my jellies from Jellyfish are in the house. Thanks, guys, for joining.
Okay, the next one is letting go of how things used to be. This was a big one for me. What about for you, Sharon?
It was hard. It was really hard. Really hard. I missed my shopping. Missed my lunches.
Yes.
It was rough. It was rough.
Yeah.
Missed my nail appointments.
Massage.
It was rough. It was rough.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, this one's resonating. And then put a G in the chat if facing grief, loss, and longing as one that resonates for you. I know that for many of us, we have actually lost people to the virus. And even like myself, maybe lost a loved one during the pandemic and not being able to visit them. And facing that grief, loss, and longing is so brave and courageous.
It is. Lots of people out there with G's, and I can definitely understand. I know I lost my uncle during the pandemic, and we didn't get a chance to really mourn or pay our respects the way we normally would have. So
Right.
definitely a rough period of time for a lot of people out there.
And then there's also the longing, right, for those things that we're just used to having in our lives, right?
Well, I see the chat's continuing to heat up.
It is.
Lots of H's. I see Wendy Gates out there.
So this one is taking on a new role. Drop a T in the chat if taking on a new role is something that you have done. Maybe you never saw yourself as a teacher and suddenly you were teaching your kids.
Hats off to all the people who were teaching their kids. That is a tough, tough job. Bow down to all teachers. A round of applause if you're a teacher.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Ooh, lots of T's.
Lots of T's. The
Lots of
chat is
T's.
blowing up.
I too took a new job during the pandemic. I did. I haven't met anyone in my company. Can you believe it?
Wow, that's amazing.
Totally a different experience onboarding.
Wow. Oh, and we seem to have lost the last one. The last one was being with your loved ones 24/7 without becoming an unfortunate news headline. Now drop a rock star in the chat if that one resonates.
I think there are lots of rock stars out there.
Absolutely. So stay in the chat with us for a second, because what did we miss in the list? So tell us in the chat, what are some other ways that you have shown up and been bold during the pandemic and continue to be? What did we miss in our list?
Chat's on fire, Pam. Lots of rock stars out
is,
there.
yeah,
Lots
that
of rock
last one.
stars. Way to go.
That last one really resonated.
Oh, I love this one from Deborah. I have been bold with my consistent happy hours at 5 o'clock. I'm
Yeah.
right there with you, Deborah. Right there with you.
Pivoting from Suzanne.
Cooking more at home. What a novel idea.
Finding new ways to entertain ourselves, right? That innovation as well.
Ooh, I can rock a pair of yoga pants like no one else.
Learned a lot of new cocktails. Yep, me too, Cindy.
Handwritten cards to friends across the states. That's nice.
Okay, well, thanks so much. And thanks, Sharon, for joining us with the chat. So 5 years ago, I found myself in an oh shit moment in a restroom. Don't worry, this isn't going to be a graphic restroom stall story, but I was about to lead a 2-day leadership training for an organization I'd been consulting with for 6 years. The VP, who was a former client, was also in the restroom, and she shared how nervous she felt about her opening presentation. And I noticed something weird. Usually when I'm about to start a 2-day offsite, I have that helpful nervous energy. But today I had nothing. I'd done this kind of event here many, many times before. I could predict how it would go, where the questions would be, even the resistance. Oh, shit. This doesn't give me juice or joy anymore. I was flat. And as I put my hand on the door handle to go into the conference room, it just hit me. No, not the door. But it hit me. I'm going to do stand-up comedy. And a wave of fear pulsed through my body. Who am I to think I could do stand-up comedy? Oh, and starting to do comedy at 50? Now that's funny, Pam. Yes, a menopausal rookie is just what most comedy clubs are waiting for. What if I suck? What if I'm not funny? Better to just sit in the comfort zone of what I know and just enjoy the mastery, right? I don't know about you, but life-changing debates in my head like this are often not well-timed, and this was no exception. I look up and 20 leaders are waiting for me to start the offsite. And I get through the 2 days, but I just knew I wouldn't go back to that. It might not look like a natural progression to go from leadership coach to add stand-up comedy to my business offerings, but looking back, the comedy breadcrumbs were always there. And the fact that the journey was unique is actually not unique. I notice these quirky, unique journeys are the norm for my coaching clients too. And there's often a trail of breadcrumbs that can be traced back through the squiggly path. And it can often show up in what we daydream about, read about, what we got told off for as kids. As you listen to me and the other speakers tonight, reflect on your own breadcrumbs. My comedy breadcrumbs began growing up in an Irish household in London, one of 5 kids. You can imagine the banter at our dinner table, making fun of each other, what had happened in our day and ourselves. It was just how we rolled. I often got told off for being funny. I remember Sister Mary at school saying, "Do you want to be known as the class clown, Pamela?" Yes, please. Sign me up, official class clown. I was sent out of psychology class at university for making other students laugh. If only the lecturer knew how much humor enhanced memory and learning. Even at coaching school, I was told to drop the humor, take my clients' problems more seriously. Because yes, that's exactly what we need. More seriousness applied to our problems. But these are all breadcrumbs. So no surprise then that when it came to dating, if we weren't belly laughing on a first date, it seemed pointless to have a second. I ended up marrying the funniest person I know, and we've been together for 30 years, including surviving the pandemic without becoming an unfortunate news headline. Humor is our relationship superpower. We laugh together every day, and we look at life through the lens of what's funny about this. A few months ago, during the pandemic, it occurred to me that there's an unprecedented use of the word unprecedented right now. I chuckled about this one for days. Levity has always helped us with the gravity in life. When we got bored on a flight, we would write comedy sets. And I seriously thought that's what all couples did, until I asked some friends what their comedy was about, and I got very blank stares. I found myself daydreaming about doing stand-up. And it was terrifying just to think about it, but it just wouldn't leave me alone. And after that oh shit moment in the restroom, I decided before I was 50, I would do stand-up in a comedy club. I invited 10 friends to an open mic so that I would have to get on stage. And stepping out onto the stage, my heart was racing. It felt like it was beating out of my chest. Sweaty palms, throat dry. I took the microphone off the stand, and I could see my hand shaking. I took a moment to move the mic stand behind me. I'd seen so many real comedians do this before. The first joke got a big laugh, which was just a total shock. But I began to relax, and I quickly felt right at home. The professional comedian who opened the night came and found me afterwards, and she couldn't believe this was my first set. She said, "You had a great comedy arc. You ended on your best joke, and your setups were strong. And your throwback was amazing." And I had no idea what she was talking about. She saw my blank look and said, "You did great. You didn't make any rookie mistakes. You're a natural." So one of the friends who was in the audience asked me to do a comedy set at the coaches conference. And then I got invited to do one in LA. And I kept getting invited to do more and more sets whenever I would do one. And then somebody asked me what I would charge to perform, and I wondered what performer she was referring to. I'd never seen myself as a performer. I argued with an author who told me I was a fantastic writer. I'm like, no, I'm not a writer. And he said, "But you wrote this set." It honestly hadn't occurred to me that coming up with comedy was actually writing. Breadcrumbs. A year after my first set, I got to meet one of my comedy idols, who, when he found out I had started doing comedy at the age of 50, told me, "You're going to have to do 100 gigs before you find your voice." I was devastated for about 30 seconds before I thought, screw that. It was a huge advantage to start doing comedy at 50. I already had my voice, and it was loud and unapologetic. So here are some things I've learned from doing comedy and working with clients to do bold things. and think about those that might apply to you. Seeing success as taking the risk, not the outcome. Not waiting until you're ready, not waiting until you have more confidence. The confidence comes in the doing. Taking imperfect action. And not comparing your beginning with someone else's middle or advanced level. And letting go of what's old. And asking for help. Choosing ease, not squeeze. This doesn't have to be a heavy lift. You can just follow the breadcrumbs. So for the past few years, I've been getting paid to do stand-up about leadership and the human condition at events and conferences. The audience responses continue to blow me away. People tell me about big shifts they make. One woman told me about how she had actually not laughed for 3 years since her husband died. And when she watched my comedy, she barely laughed. And it broke her open, and she hadn't stopped smiling since. I cried when I read her email. If I hadn't pushed through the fear and taken that first shaky step on stage at the Comedy Club open mic, I wouldn't have got to experience the power humor has to change us, which is why I've learned to listen to those oh shit bathroom moments, that wisdom that comes up to tell us that maybe something has passed its sell-by date and something new and life-affirming wants to take its place. Because the cost of not trying is far greater than the risk of failing and constantly wondering what if. My new venture, The Good Death Project, is based on this very idea that a good death requires a life well lived. I don't know about you, but I want to get to the end of life having left nothing on the table. So now I'm using comedy and taking a shaky step to talk about death and mortality as a way to embrace life. Now, it might seem counterintuitive, but this is actually a great time to be bold. In this time of unprecedented disruption, did you catch the throwback there? Things are uniquely unfrozen, and they don't have to land back the way they were. So maybe you have a someday dream that you've been putting off until you lose 20 pounds or the kids leave, or you get the next promotion or more money, and you don't want to put it off anymore. It doesn't have to be a big, hairy, wild vision either. Being bold might mean setting a boundary or doing more of what you love every day. Drop in the chat what being bold looks like for you.
Wow, the chat's on fire. Everyone's calling you, Pam, the marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Awesome, kudos.
I love it.
Everyone
such a
is
compliment.
loving that. And the breadcrumbs. I want to call out a couple of chats. I love one of the things you said. Confidence is in the doing. Confidence is in the doing. Isn't that so true? So often we're afraid to do things.
Yeah,
I want to give a shout out to Karen McMahon, getting her real estate license after 30 years. Awesome, awesome. I mean, it's just amazing. So many people on the chat, bold acts, great accomplishments, homeschooling their kids, cooking more. Incredible, incredible stories on the chats.
It's amazing. The chat is blowing up. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
So how did you make the decision to go into comedy? I mean, being a stand-up is such a bold act.
Well, I have to say, if you ever want to terrify yourself, Sharon, I highly recommend doing an open mic at a comedy club.
I don't know about that, Pam. Standing on top of that airplane, that seemed terrifying to me.
No. Open mic is way more terrifying. Well, as you all know, comedians have to finish on their best jokes, so no pressure, Pam. Here we go. When I first came to Seattle, my husband and I came out of our hotel, and the waft of cinnamon carried us down the street because, you know, America smells of cinnamon in the morning, don't you? And we found ourselves outside this cute little coffee shop called Starbuck. My husband turns to me and he says, "Screw the tea, I'm going to have one of those lates." And I have no idea what that is. And I also like to be on time, so I decided to have a tea. We go in, he orders his late, they figure out what he means, and I order my tea. The server says, "You want iced tea? You want to put ice in my tea? You want lemon? Lemon in my tea? What are you doing to tea here?" No, 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 no. I just want tea and milk. 2% milk? No, 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 way more than that. Like 20% milk, 80% tea. Can you really measure 98% tea and 2% milk? No wonder you put a man on the moon.
So you gotta tell me, I mean, you're from the South, I'm from the South, a different South, Louisiana, south of England. How's this whole transition start? What made you move here?
Well, that's a bit of a long story, Sharon, but basically two Brits kind of decided they wanted an adventure. And so that was my husband and I, and we just kind of made it happen. We brought our business here. So yeah, and we have loved it. We've been here 20 years. As you can hear, I have no British accent now.
None whatsoever.
Yeah.
I would never know. Never know. I absolutely love the comedy. You know, and talking about menopause, oh my God, so true. If men were to get hot flashes, it would be all the rage. It would be like, you're missing out.
I know.
You know?
Yeah, I like the idea of the estrogen kickers in beer. I think that would be really helpful for us.
It would be incredibly helpful for us. Well, thank you, Pam. Hopefully that loosened everyone else up. It certainly gave me quite a chuckle, Pam. So, get your beverages, get your snacks. I want you to get really comfortable. And I hope you're really ready for a fantastic night. So let's get started.
For women, 2020 wasn't just a setback. It was a revelation.
There's too many of you crying. Oh, brother, brother, brother. There's far too many of you dying.
Why? Because even with all of the progress we've made, we're still more likely to earn less than our male counterparts, and still called on to be caregivers first, putting us at risk of having 25 years of progress wiped out, just like that. But the truth is, we keep rising.
What's going on? 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 What's going on?
Because we've come too far to only come this far. Together, we are unstoppable. And together, we will get our friends and sisters back into the workforce. Because you know what's really going on? We are.
Hey everyone, it's great to be here, sharing this space with y'all for the Be Bold event. I'm honored to celebrate women with you and to continue empowering each other. I think this is a crucial space for each of us, and it's my honor to share some music with y'all. I find it a little hard to talk about motivation right now with all of the circumstances that we're facing individually, collectively. It's hard to find motivation and to keep going, but what really inspires me is seeing people press on and knowing that right now is the only thing that we have, this space together, being present, and that tomorrow is a mystery, but we're going to keep going to figure that out, to find out what tomorrow brings. So this song is called Unstoppable.
You're so unfair to yourself. Got that feeling in your chest. Can't look in the mirror, can't see who you are. Wanna be somebody else. Every time you falter, every time you fall, I can still see the road ahead. You'll be brighter than the stars, and you'll see how radiant you are. I know you're full of doubt, but don't let them bring you down, 'cause you're unstoppable. Rising higher than the sun, climb up way until the ground, way up above the clouds. They'll never bring you down, 'cause you're unstoppable. On the edge of giving in, growing tired of where you've been. Don't quit, keep on hoping. Hold your head up high. Now you're closer than you think. Every time you falter, every time you fall, I can still see the road ahead. You'll be brighter than the stars, and you'll see how radiant you are. I know you're full of doubt, don't let them bring you down, 'cause you're unstoppable. Rising higher than the sun, climb up way until the ground, way up above the clouds. They'll never bring you down, 'cause you're unstoppable. Hold on, don't let go. Shining brighter, you're unstoppable. Hold on, don't let go. Even in the dark, you glow. Hold on, don't let go. Shining brighter, you're possible. Hold on, don't let go. 'Cause even in the dark, you glow. You'll be brighter than the stars, and you'll see how radiant you are. I know you're full of doubt, don't let them bring you down, 'cause you're unstoppable. Rising higher than the sun, climb up way until the ground, way up above the clouds. They'll never bring you down, 'cause you're unstoppable. Unstoppable. Yeah, you are unstoppable.
Wow, how amazing was that? Welcome to Be Bold Now. I'm Nikki Smith, one of the co-founders of Be Bold Now.
And I'm Sharon Harris, Be Bold Now board member. We are thrilled to have you join us tonight for incredible stories of being bold, inspiration, and celebration of the amazing accomplishments of so many women.
Thank you to Camilla Mora for that wonderful performance of Unstoppable, a song from the international feature film Leap, and for sharing how she feels during the pandemic. Also, thank you to Pam Dibs. I love the menopause. By the way, my husband has an F-150. I couldn't think of a better way to kick off Be Bold Now 2021. Welcome. Well, here we are again, Although Be Bold Now is a little different this year, like so many other things in our lives. In fact, I would say it's a bit of an experiment. While we're sad not to have you all watching in person, we're really happy to have you joining us for our 6th annual Be Bold Now. It's an International Women's Day celebration. For those of you who are attending Be Bold Now for the first time, welcome. This is an event where women share stories of courage, inspiration and support. International Women's Day has been celebrated around the world for 112 years to shine a light on women's achievements and the work that still needs to be done to create equity for all women and girls around the globe. With gender parity still over a century away, according to the World Economic Forum's 2020 Global Gender Report, and the UN reporting women have been the hardest hit by COVID, we believe there has never been a more important time to get inspired and motivated to be bold and come together for change.
2021 continues to be a challenge. We remain in a national crisis. Millions of Americans have lost their jobs due to the pandemic, but the mothers have been especially hit hard. Women's workplace participation is where it was in 1989. According to Pew Research, for every one father who lost his job, 3 moms have lost their jobs. In 9 months, we lost almost 30 years of progress. Black and Latino women are losing jobs at twice the rate of white women. While 2020 was a difficult year, there were some positive advances for women and history. 141 women will hold seats in the U.S. Congress. The first woman vice president of the United States is Black and South Asian heritage, and she was sworn in by Sonia Sotomayor, the first Latina woman on the Supreme Court justice. Some of you who have attended Be Bold before may be asking, where's Kate? Well, we're excited to share with you. Kate is one of our guest speakers tonight. Kate has been busy during the pandemic. Not only has she co-founded a business, the W Marketplace, she has also written and published a book, Breaking Borders. I will have the privilege of interviewing her a bit later in the show.
We have an amazing lineup of performance artists and speakers tonight who share our philosophy to inspire, empower and support each other to take bold action to accelerate equality. Our first speaker is Donna Sarkar, who by day is Microsoft's principal cloud advocate. That's a senior software engineer. But tonight, she's talking about her side hustle as Chief Creative Officer of Prima Donna Fashion Studios. And she will share her story on why she is determined to get banned from New York Fashion Week and bring back luxury, slow fashion that's tailor-made for everyone, including me and Kate, who are both wearing Donna's creations that were custom-made for us to wear this evening. So please welcome the fearless software engineer, author and fashion designer, Donna Sarkar.
Good evening. Thank you so much. So here's a question for everyone. How many of you have heard this phrase? Magic happens outside your comfort zone. That truly, if you want magic to happen, you have to leave behind everything you know, burn down the ships, and build new ships. I truly believe this. I, in fact, wrote a book on this topic. I call it Comfort Zones Are Boring, Go Do the Thing. And I believe this so strongly. I went on a book tour, I held workshops, I have a group. I believe this in the heart and soul of my being. And then everything came to an end the day I started my own business on the side. And that is the day I realized that getting out of your comfort zone is the equivalent of demolishing the house you live in, like with a big old crane, like demolish, and starting all over. Meanwhile, there's a different way to do things, which is, rather than demolishing the house you live in, why not add on an extension? So take everything you know and add on to your comfort zone. So here's what happened when I started my business. In 2019, I, who have a full-time day job at Microsoft, a very busy day job, decided I must start my fashion line. I have to do it right now. No, I'm not gonna wait till I retire. No, I'm not gonna wait till the time is right. No, I'm not gonna wait till I know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna start it. And I started it in the way that I am comfortable doing it, which is bespoke. I went to fashion school, I learned tailoring, I learned a lot about fit and size and pattern making and draping. And I decided we are going to be a different kind of fashion house. I am intensely disillusioned by fast fashion. Did you know that 80% of the garment industry is women? And do you know that 80% of those women are paid less than $1 an hour? So for us to look like this, there are women all over the world who have to suffer. That's not okay. So I knew from day one that we're a very different kind of fashion house. Our entire process is bespoke. So we'll work with the customer to choose her fabric, we will work with her to take her measurements, and we will make a custom piece specifically for her that no one else in the world will have. Nikki's piece is custom made for Nikki, Kate's piece is not custom made for Kate, my piece is custom made for me. Same with the ladies behind me, Raji, Alice, Julie. So our tailors are paid Seattle wages no matter where in the world they live. I work from home and make Seattle wages no matter where I happen to work. Why shouldn't our tailors? Our tailors are all women. They live in Lagos, Nigeria. They live in Port Harcourt, Nigeria, Jakarta, Indonesia, Sydney, Australia, Bridgetown, Barbados, LA, Seattle, Detroit. So no matter where in the world our women live, they're able to earn a living wage. Most of our tailors are mothers who support their family with their tailoring. The picture on the right is Bolaji and her daughter Esther. Bolaji was able to leave her abusive husband, take Esther, and move to the big city of Lagos and earn a living based on her tailoring. And because she's been our partner since day one of Prima Donna Studios, she's now able to open her own shop and her own business and hire a team of tailors to do work with her. Esther's watching her mother go from being a struggling single mother entrepreneur to being a powerful businesswoman in the bustling city of Lagos. Everything in our process is personalized. Every single thing is as special as the woman wearing it. So while this is a beautiful story, we ran into a huge issue. And that huge issue is the long wait time. So turns out when you custom make each and everything, this is a very time-consuming process. As of today, a year and a half into our business, we have 800 customers all over the world in 13 countries. So if someone orders a piece with us, the wait time can be 2 months. It can be 3 months. You can imagine this is not a great experience. So many people have told me, like, Donna, it would be great if you had some inventory. Retailers tell me this, Rent the Runway tells me this, everyone tells me this. And I'm seized with fear at this thought because of so many reasons. Namely, I see articles like this one, which is H&M at the beginning of the pandemic, they were saddled with an inventory of $4.3 billion worth of unsold clothing because all of the H&M shops shut down. So I think about this and think, you know who doesn't have $4.8 billion? Me. This solo entrepreneur over here, the one whose entire fashion industry is funded by a very, very powerful independent angel investor here in Seattle, Washington, also me. So being self-funded, being a solo person running this, I just don't have the luxury to do the things that the big fashion houses do. So I had to come up with a process, a 5-step process, because I'm an engineer, I always need like some sort of framework, to figure out how do I add on to my comfort zone without losing my mind. So step 1, and this is probably the most important step of all, which is you have to understand why this is important to you. Why is it important that you get out of your comfort zone and take this next big step? For me, it's that I want to future-proof my entire career in life. Right now, I do happen to be in tech. I've been in tech for 16 years. And if you work in tech, you know that ageism is a real problem. Right now, tech likes me a lot, and I like tech a lot. But there's always 1 or 2 people deciding how long I'm in this industry. So whether it's in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, I want to exit the tech industry, whether of my own free will or because I've been aged out, and retire into a life of being the CEO of a 20-year-old company. That is powerful. It's powerful to know that I don't have to go scrounging looking for a job, that I will be the kind of person who other people will come looking for a job to. So it is so important for me to control my destiny going forward. Second, why am I afraid? And the heart and soul of the matter is I'm not from the fashion industry. I didn't grow up in a garment district in LA or New York. I don't come from a I don't come from a family who owns a business. I have no idea what words like cost per unit mean. You know, everyone's like, what is your cost per unit? What is your production chain? What does supply chain look like? And I'm like writing these words down and nodding, saying like, yeah, I know these answers. I don't know them right now, but I'll know them soon. So yes, imposter syndrome all day. Fundamentally, I am a fashion designer who knows how to design for one person at a time. I don't know how to design for a billion women all over the planet. So yes, I am afraid. So third step, I had to list everything that I need to do. And this is where there's a whole factor of you don't actually know what you don't know yet. So what do I know that I need to do? One, design or choose the pieces that I would like to make inventory of. Okay, obviously do that one. Second, test those designs on actual people versus making stuff up. 3, find wholesale fabric that's not so boring I could dye. 3, find a small batch ethical factory somewhere that I can do this production. 4, fit samples on real people. 5, find money, figure out what to charge people, update the website, figure out shipping faster. Do I have to learn TikTok? I don't know. How do you deal with returns? These are all things that a big fashion house needs to do. And once you write down everything you need to do, you need to put them in some sort of an order so you don't immediately get overwhelmed and abandon the whole plan. So in order, I need to first, before I have an inventory of fashion, I need to figure out what I'm going to inventory. So I need to either design the pieces or choose what I have and test on real people. So the way a person who's getting out of their comfort zone would do this would be, they would say, I have a 16-piece collection and I'm going to inventory all of them. But if someone is not ready to do that, AKA me, I'm gonna add on to my comfort zone. So like a proper engineer, I'm gonna follow a scientific method and do one experiment at a time, changing one variable at a time. So what is the experiment? I'm gonna choose one piece. I'm gonna choose the one that has been selling quite a bit. It's the one Kate's wearing tonight called the Alice Adventure shirt dress. I'm going to choose this and I'm going to get feedback on our actual customers, make any edits to the pattern, find a bunch of local victims to give me feedback on this. The local victims are here on stage tonight, so they will be getting feedback on this. So once I identify the experiment, that's when I'm actually able to say, all right, which part of this process do I have absolutely no clue about? And the big clue, the big question is, how the heck do you find good fabric in large batches, not one at a time? Right now, my fabric shopping is go to an exotic country and fill up my suitcase and illegally smuggle it back to the US. It turns out that doesn't work. When you're ordering 200 yards of fabric, you get caught in a thing called customs. You have to pay a thing called taxes. So how do I actually do this? This is where I've had to realize that the things I don't know how to do, I need to hire. I found a site called Makers Row, which is all American-made manufacturing. And it turns out that there's a factory right here in town. And in Seattle, this factory is run by 4 lovely Vietnamese women who've been doing this work their entire lives. And they are more than happy to partner with me to make this vision come true. So once I identified this factory, identified these 4 women who I'm going to be doing work with, identified that I can still pay them Seattle salaries to do my work here in Seattle, I'm now able to actually take my product and go to market. Now, you might be thinking, Donna, are you a coward for not getting out of your comfort zone? Are you a coward for not taking a huge step and instead taking a tiny baby step? And I'll tell you, I've wrestled with this myself for years because I am a get out of the comfort zone, go do the thing sort. But throughout this pandemic, I've watched so many people, especially women, lose their businesses because they played big. They played bigger than they were ready to because they took advice from someone who had no skin in this game. How many businesses have we heard shutting down, folding because they went so big before they were ready? We've heard hundreds of those stories. And for me, it all comes back to the why. Why am I doing this? And my answer is simple. There are at least 1 million fashion companies in the world, but how many do you know whose primary goal is to create economic power for 1 billion women all over the world? There's just one of those, and that one's mine. Sometimes the most bold thing you can do is play medium, listen to yourself, and do the thing. My name is Donna Sarkar. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of Prima Donna Studios. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna, for your powerful story and being an example of what bold action looks like. Hey, if you make me look like this, I will be your local victim anytime. Our next guest is Chana Janelle Ewing, the CEO, founder of Genie, a community-centered marketplace of beauty products that mirrors your beliefs. And she's an author of an important children's book that should be in every family household. It's called An ABC of Equality, that introduces identity and social justice to children. She's a cultural entrepreneur, marketer, and author who believes that identity is a lever to pull to unlock human potential. And entrepreneurship is an opportunity to make dents that move culture forward. Welcome, Chana, to Be Bold Now. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I'd love you to share a bit about yourself, where you are today, and who or what inspired you to become a cultural entrepreneur.
Thank you for having me, Nikki. Can you all hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. I'm so happy to be here today and share a little bit of my story. I think it actually, who inspires me to become a cultural entrepreneur or use that language is actually someone not at all in my field. It's Quincy Delight Jones, the legendary Quincy Jones. He is 87 years old and has spent the past 6 or 7 decades making his mark on culture. So in music and film and television, he's a record producer and author and composer and film producer. And so he really has his name actually, I was actually just thinking about this earlier today, his name Delight, having that be his middle name almost was like a foreshadowing of the work that he would do in his life, which has been all around delighting other human beings through his cultural production. And I like that there is a through line in all of the work that you can see, and that it's a quintessential Quincy.
Okay.
And I aim to do the same thing in the work that I do as I look at entrepreneurship. How do I create a through line from one organization, one product to the next, so that when people look at it, it feels like it's quintessentially Chana, it's quintessentially bold, and it's quintessentially culture first.
Wow, I love Quincy Jones and I love his music. You are the CEO and founder of Genie, a community-centered marketplace of culture-first brands. What does it mean to be culture first?
So culture first really is all about this idea of using culture as a lens for action. So thinking that, in our particular case, we're looking at shopping, but really it's like thinking about all the actions that you take in society and how does that track up to moving society and culture forward. So in our instance with Genie, we are creating a culture first beauty marketplace. And our stated goal is to rewrite the narrative to be more inclusive and intersectional and to create beauty for us. So in beauty, there has been a traditional narrative around who's beautiful, who's centered. Is typically white folks, white women in particular, thin people in particular, able-bodied people specifically, so and cisgender folks, right? So there's a specific sort of beauty archetype that we've seen in magazines over the years. And what that does to other folks, other human beings, is that it makes them feel like, well, perhaps I'm not beautiful, or I'm only beautiful if I look like the people that I see in the magazines, or if I look like the influencers that I see across my feed on Instagram. So in our work, where we're thinking about how do you sell products that have the intent to move this narrative forward and beyond the constraints of what has been done before. So beyond the gender binary, beyond what we know about what's beautiful around size, beyond what we know about what's beautiful around race and um, skin complexion, and how do we front the people who are in these different communities? How do we bring them together and center those folks, and also share brands that are from those communities too? So on our marketplace, when you go to our shop, you're going to be able to find people who look just like you, who have the same similar stories and also had similar problems and decided to build brands with people that they can relate to in mind, and therefore creating a community that is intent on moving society and moving culture forward.
I really love that. That's really about shopping our values. I've read your brilliant book, An ABC of Equality. Tell us, why did this book need to be written?
Yeah, that's a big question, Nikki. Thanks for asking. So, an ABC of Equality needed to be written because, as adults, we think about these heavy terms. We think about racism, we think about sexism, classism, all of these issues, these challenges, systemic oppressions that we all have encountered throughout our daily lives as an adult, so over the course of growing up. What happens is that they become these big ideas and they become these intractable challenges, right? And so I thought it would be a great exercise to really simplify these terms into bite-sized content that we could relearn as adults, but also that you can start important conversations with children. So children don't have the wisdom of having encountered, say, racism, right? Like they don't necessarily understand race as the social construct that it is in the same way that adults may understand it. But as soon as they're coming to the world, they are encountering difference. They are being categorized by the families that they live in, the societies and cultures that they are a part of, and then when they get into schools, they see difference all around them. So they sometimes they're asking harmless questions out of curiosity and what they're seeing, and as adults we might get stunted because of our experience with that issue that they're bringing to the forefront. So the book just enables you to have a starting place to start the conversation. It's by no means exhaustive, and it also doesn't attempt to be the whole story of a category of social justice. It just really is a way for you to have those have an easier entry point and conversation with young people, but also perhaps pick up a new nugget for yourself and thinking about social justice.
Thank you, Chana, for writing this important book. It's such a helpful way to introduce identity and social justice to children. Every family should have a copy. So finally, I have to ask you, you've made so many bold moves in your life. What advice would you give to women and their allies who are thinking about taking some bold steps of their own?
Yes, I would say that a few bold steps that I would like to say. One I'm going to start with my favorite phrase, which is "get on your own side." Um, Oftentimes when you're a creative or if you're an entrepreneur and you're mission oriented and you have things that you want to see done in the world, you can be so focused on that mission, so focused on that vision, so focused on the team and all the different things that you need to do to bring together in order to see that vision come to life, and you leave yourself out of the picture. You may not take care of yourself in the ways that you need to. You may not actually create a salary for yourself, as something as simple as that. Or you may, your self-care, your health, your exercise, your meditation, all these things might go to the wayside because you're so focused on the work and you're focused on, and maybe even if you're not focused on the work, perhaps you're focused on your family and your children and the communities around you. But it's really important, excuse me, that we center ourselves in these and experiences of our life. And so that's my phrase that I say to myself often, to just bring myself back to the here and now and to center myself in my own body. Is just to get on my own side. And the other thing that I would say is that, you know every human being is both oppressed and also an oppressor in some way or another, right? And what that means is that, like, myself right now, actually, I'm going to quote someone. I'm going to do a terrible job of quoting her, but Rachel Ricketts, who is an anti-racism activist and writer and just incredible thought leader, she had this really concise way of putting this recently, which is that, like, there are ways in which you have power and there are ways in which you have privilege, and there are ways in which that someone else's power and privilege are impacting your life. So, for instance, with myself as a Black, cisgender, able-bodied human being, there are ways in which I am oppressed and marginalized in society, if you will, and there are ways in which I stand in privilege, and that has to do with not having the experience of being disabled in the world, for instance, or not having the experience of having the experience of being cisgender versus trans in the world. And so wherever you have power and privilege, it is your responsibility to unpack it, to and to, quite frankly, to shut it down. So if we're thinking about white folks in particular, it is the responsibility of white folks to think about how they can unpack racism and how to get rid of, finally, white supremacy. Because from that vantage point, you can unpack and get rid of that oppression. So it's a great way of looking at, where do your identities place you in society, and therefore from that point of view, how can you use that positionality to support others, to remove barriers, to remove injustice.
Thank you, Chana. Two lessons that we took away there. One, get on your own side. And then two, use your power and privilege to support others. Thank you so much for all that you are doing to support women. Our next speaker is Diana Hoyas, a businesswoman from Colombia who, like many women, learned the hard way, earning her experience being a leader, managing teams in male-dominated industries like automotive, heavy equipment, and alcoholic beverages. And she developed a cleaning supply marketing company from scratch with a sales team of 35 women in her home country, Colombia. This experience helped her understand how the gender gap affects all women. It doesn't matter where you are and how well educated you are. Along the way, she discovered her passion was talking to women and inspiring them. So she created Muchacha, a coffee brand that is 100% made and supplied by women. Tonight, she's going to share her story of courage and why her vocation in life now is to empower women and reduce the gender gap.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm so excited to be here. So this is a story about a life like many others, but uniquely mine. Now, looking back, I knew my life was a constant story of resilience. And to be honest, I feel that resilience in the moments of my life too. So let me begin. My father always told me that I could not depend on anyone. This is a memory that reaches back to when I was 5 years old. He would say that I can do anything I wanted, but that I had to do it alone. He did his best to teach me how to be, educate me so I could go into the world in a strong ability to communicate, to do it, and do it effectively. You see, my country, Colombia, is a country that has rich in so many wonderful and beautiful gifts. Music, food, laughter, family. We are a culture that loves passionately, reveres our elders, and lives life to the fullest, even in the darkest time. However, my culture is one that is very influenced by male-dominated culture, dictating all aspects in life. Women can sometimes be seen as an object and has no choice to be heavily dependent on the man to give guidance in all directions, to make all decisions in the family. You see, I think my dad really wanted to prepare me to be independent to break this cultural norm. As soon as I could get out of the house and start to establish myself, I did. I was so excited and restless to go out the world and do it. So my first job, I sold socks after church on Sundays. Then I worked at my uncle's gym cleaning sweaty mats. Working for my family was a great for many reasons, but most important, I feel like I was protected. I knew I needed to move on while I was in college. I became an assistant manager in an auto company. I had no idea what I got a job there, but I did it. And it was a good challenge. Balancing work and school, it definitely took me a while to finish my degree, but you know what? 10 years later, I did it. Going to school and work is hard enough, but also working in the auto industry, a very male dominated, it was tremendous. I cried a lot. It was so also thrilling. I had a great manager that was really supported, providing me a lot of guidance, and I feel good knowing it was an stable company. However, it was not long before it started. Harassment. I was being pushed aside because I was a woman. I had many male colleagues who were out to get my position, and customer will brush me off thinking that I didn't know what I was talking about, so I had to fight, prove my knowledge, and recertify my position while secretly living in fear every single day that someone was going to take it from me. But you know what? It never happened. I did it. I proved myself wrong, and I think I knew I was doing that I would never learn or understand this male dominated industry because I was a woman. I look back in that situation and I did it on my own, and I'm proud of that. I took my experience and moved to a new company. Now I was the boss of a team of 12 salesmen because of my leadership position. Because I was a woman, I experienced more situation of harassment. Going into this new position, however, I knew it would happen. Of course, it was still in the auto industry, and there are a lot of women in the industry, let alone in position of leadership. I was prepared for it, but sadly, expected it until I did not. You see, the harassment expanded and it was different this time. It was sexual harassment at the most extreme level. Well, on a business trip in my capital city of Colombia, Bogota, it happened. We had successful lunch, a new SUV company. Everything went really well. And my colleagues and bosses were so happy, and we were celebrating. We wrapped it up for the night and went back to our rooms. While we're getting ready to sleep, I found my boss standing in my room in the entrance next to my balcony. Motionless, I tried to understand what was happening. And another colleague saw him jump into my room, and we were able to get him out of my room. 15 days later, I was fired from that job. I never had the courage to say what happened. Only today, I'm making truly public. I struggle with so many emotions. I didn't know what to do. Yet, I questioned if I handled the situation correctly. I would always think that it was my fault. I let that job go, even though that maybe I should have let him to do whatever he wanted to do with me. Also, these emotions ate me and sent me back and put me into a dark place. While I was in this dark place in my life, I just trying to survive, trying to pay my bills. A friend suggested I sell cleaning products, whoever needed them. Why no other options? So I decided to do it. Using Facebook and direct sales techniques to get the products to market. In order to make money, I knew I needed to sell a significant amount of bottles from that point. So I began to recruit other women to sell products digitally with me. Let me just tell you, I had no idea how to sell digitally. In my 6 month of venture, I had a female sales force of 35 women nationwide. Women with similar stories of mine or different, but at the end, all warriors of situation that did not let them get ahead or threaten their integrity as a woman. Here, I understood that women often in position of vulnerability always, but it's in us to change that situation. And how? Aligning with other women, us working together are stronger. Women are the backbone of everything we do. Now I'm the CEO of Muchacha Coffee. I started this coffee company because I know that many of the coffee farms are run by women, but because of these long ingrained cultural blocks, women are seen as a secondary of these farms. When I went to visit a coffee farm for the first time in my life, the woman had a lot of tasks, but it was more than run household, planting the coffee, and even picking the cherries. When I asked the men of the farm why women were not in charge of the farm, so funny, the men would tell me they were not capable enough to run a farm. I left that farm thinking that they don't value the woman, just like the woman that work for me selling the cleaning products. This woman wanted to be seen, wanted to be independent, and wanted to be seen as equals too. This reminds me of my days in the auto industry where when someone would ask me where the boss was, I would tell them I was the boss and they didn't believe me. They were always looking for a man. Sadly, then COVID hit and it really hit me hard. I did many people in this world. Not only was the world shutting down, but my own world was greatly impacted by loss of my grandpa 2 months before. In my culture, losing grandparents is devastating. This massive humbling experience led me to see a new path forward and push myself down a new road, but not only for myself, but all for women in the coffee industry. I wanted to be a leader, to help women live better. And that is how I started Muchacha, a coffee supply chain for women-owned companies. And in my eyes, at the end, this is the only way we can reduce the gender gap. The farmers are women, the importers are women, I am a woman, the roaster is a woman. I want us to be seen front and center, no longer hiding behind to the face of a man, nor of the words of a man in my culture. This is very important. Women need to be seen more than ever. This is my story. This is how it shows that it's all us women need to be connected and be kind of let people tell us what we can do or what we can do it anymore. We are the boss. No questions asked. This is the new normal. Thus closing the gender gap. I am Diana Hoyos, CEO of Muchacha Coffee, and you can find Muchacha Coffee W Marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. We so appreciate your being brave and bold and being so vulnerable with our audience. We're humbled in the face of your story. So thank you, and we look forward to supporting Muchacha Coffee. Now, let's meet some kick-ass women on the music scene. Rainin' Jane is Mai Bloomfield, Becky Gebhardt, Chaska Potter, and Mona Tavakoli. The four have been making music together and making a social impact for 2 decades. They've been involved in many social impact projects over the years, including co-founding Rock and Roll Camp for Girls LA, a nonprofit dedicated to empowering girls and gender-expansive youth through music. Here is Rainin' Jane.
Hi, we're Rainin' Jane.
Hey.
We are so happy to be here for International Women's Day and the Be Bold Now conference. We've been a band for over 20 years, independently representing ourselves. We are equal partners in everything we do as a band, and that has been something that has allowed us to sustain a career together in the music business for 2 decades.
Our partnership has taken us on an incredible journey, from humble beginnings in Los Angeles playing coffee shops to buying our own van and trailer and driving all over the US playing the college market. And during that time, we put out 4 records. We did this all independently, releasing, promoting, booking, managing. And then we opened for Jason Mraz, and we had an amazing instant chemistry creatively. We started writing together, and now we're his backup band and we tour all over the world. It's incredible to share inspiration through music.
Yes, and one of the ways that we share inspiration through music is giving back to our very own community in Los Angeles. We are the founders of the Rock and Roll Camp for Girls Los Angeles. We started it back in 2010 while we were touring around the country, and we are going into our 12th year. We are a nonprofit social justice organization, and we're dedicated to empowering girls and gender expansive youth through music education and love and expression.
And one of the aspects of the camp is the music video program, where campers make music videos for local bands. They get cameras in their hands and we can see the world through their eyes. A couple of years ago, a group of 12-year-old campers made a music video for us. And we're going to share that with you right now. The song is called From Me to You. And we're happy to share it with you. So please enjoy it. Thanks for having us.
Be bold now. Thank you.
Hello, goodbye, good day, good night, sunset, sunrise, darkness, then light. Hold in, pour out, rise up, fall down, trees burn, new ground, silence, then sound. Oh, 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 oh. Empty, refill, weak heart, strong will, waiting until craving is fulfilled. Break down, break through, worn out, renew, new life that grew from me to you. Oh, 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 oh. You can't have one without the other. You can't know love without your brother. You can't be filled without the hunger. We can't get by without each other. Can you feel it? Can you feed it? Forward, rewind, limitless time, stacked up, streamlined, get ahead, fall behind, let go, hold tight, give up, fight, fight, laugh hard, soft cry. If you don't know, ask why. Heartache rebound, love sick, love found. Turn it up, turn it down. When you turn it all around, it's all the same within, without. Oh, 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 oh. You can't have one without the other. You can't know love without your brother. You can't be filled without the hunger. We can't get by without each other. Oh no. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Sing whoa. Can you feel it? Oh, oh. Can you feel it? Oh, sing whoa. Oh, can you feel it? Oh, oh. If I never was empty, then you never could fill me. If I never was empty, then you never could fill me. If I never was empty, then you never could fill me. If I never was empty, then you never could fill me. If I never was empty, then you never could fill me. If I never was empty, then you never could fill me. If I never was.
Thank you to Mai, Becky, Chaska, and Mona. We love the impact that Raining Jane is having around the world. Now, I want you to meet Kate Eisler. Kate is a former Microsoft executive and co-founder of the W Marketplace. Kate is a serial entrepreneur, wife, mother, and one of the funniest women I've met. Except for Pam, of course. Kate helps women defy limits and reach their dreams in her new book, Breaking Borders. Kate is the co-founder of Be Bold Now. You're going to get a chance to learn more about Kate's journey, and I'm going to try to not make her cry, but no promises. But it is my honor and absolute privilege to welcome Kate Eisler.
Kate, thank you, Sharon.
So, we've got a book. I'm so excited. So share with the audience, what was your inspiration for writing this book?
So writing a book was never on my list of things to do. It was never on my bucket list. And I wrote the book at one of my all-time lowest moments. When I left Microsoft, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was without my professional identity. And I applied for jobs, a lot of them, and they always ended in the same place. When people said, when did you get your degree? What did you get your degree in? And I answered, I don't have a college degree. The process always stopped, and I was sort of left. And so at my lowest point, writing the book was an opportunity for me to examine my life, the accomplishments, the things I had learned, and really kind of assess, maybe I wasn't that bad.
So Kate, I've taken a look at the book. I think everyone wants to know, how did you navigate this? You're traveling all over the world, you have small children, you've got a husband in tow, you didn't have a college degree, and you're working for one of the most influential tech companies on the planet. How did you make that happen?
So the first thing is, when I started at Microsoft, no one ever asked about my degree. They really wanted to know if I could contribute and if I had the drive and the energy to really fit in the culture. So I did. And really kind of what I did was decide that I had an ambition. And I followed that ambition. And I negotiated it the whole time. I was honest with myself. I interviewed for jobs like everyone else and answered honestly, and they hired me anyway.
So your book is just riddled with so many stories. You have to share some of your greatest successes, which are utterly phenomenal.
So I want to start with one that's one of my favorites. It was when I was 16. I wanted my driver's license. I took the driver's course at school and passed it, and so I even had a used car I had bought. So I drove myself to the driving examiners, and I took the test, and I passed the test, and when the instructor handed me my license and told me I could go inside and get my parents and go home, I must have looked really guilty, because he immediately gave me a stern warning and said if he had known that I had driven myself to the examination office, he never would have passed me. But it was really the first time I really realized that I could go around the normal process and still succeed. The next time was at Microsoft. I got an email about a colleague who had gotten a promotion and moved to Paris. And I thought, I want to do that. I can do that. And so I decided right then that I would express that ambition to have an international career. And it was so hard to say it at work and at home. But in those days, you know, there wasn't a lot of women bread earners, and certainly not talking their husbands into leaving their jobs and moving overseas. But we moved to Dubai in the early 90s, less than a year after that conversation.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. But you got to share, how did that conversation go?
That conversation was a tough conversation. It really was. You know, I had to be very straightforward and honest with myself about what my ambition was and what kind of person I wanted to be. And I needed to be happy, and to be a better mother and a better wife. Being happy was key to that. And so I had the conversation, and I was very fortunate that my husband and partner agreed to take a chance, but I told him it was only for a few years. It would be great. It was an adventure.
Well, it was definitely an adventure. And I think that's a great lesson for all women. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we don't even make the ask. We don't have that conversation. Mm-hmm. When you look back, I mean, you know, you've lived all over the world now. You've had this amazing career. Is there anything you would have done differently?
So when I look back at the things I've done, the mistakes I've made, I advertised Windows 3.0 6 weeks before it was announced by the company. I sometimes put my career ahead of my family. I had some successes along the way. So I did finish that college education in 2018, so I'm a recent graduate. But all of those things taught me lessons. I learned so much, and so I don't think I would actually change a thing.
Oh, that's amazing. You know, in your book, you talk about some of your failures in your career. And one in particular touches a chord for me, and that was leaving Microsoft. I know for me, leaving Microsoft was like an unwanted divorce, and I was contesting it all the way, like, don't leave me, please. Tell me about some of your failures.
So I think that oftentimes when you hear stories of women and successful women, you hear all the good parts. They always happen to be in the right place at the right time, and they meet the right people. That was not my story. My story was real. I moved up and down and sideways and sometimes backwards when I went. And when I left Microsoft, I identify with that because I was lost without my professional persona. So right or wrong, my profession defines me. And so I had a very hard time. I should have left 2 years before I did. But I knew I was in a place that I was unhappy and I wasn't growing and moving forward, but I was terrified. And so it took me some time. But when I finally left, I had to really examine myself and be honest again with myself about what I needed to do. And I created a network outside and started to picture myself in that network and move forward one day at a time, basically. And, I think that there's lots of failures in career, but there's lots of success.
Oh, that's such a great story. I mean, obviously you sort of went through this process of reinventing yourself. I mean, how did you go about doing that?
So I think that reinventing yourself comes in many ways. So I did reinvent myself one time after leaving Microsoft. And I think it also comes when you make a different decision and change directions completely. So I ran a startup and I was sure I was going to be successful and it was going to be great. And I had to realize that I had made some bad decisions and it was not successful for a variety of reasons. And so I had to reinvent myself again. And I took those lessons and do it all the time. And I think, again, when you really assess what you're doing and you're honest, it becomes the reinvention is the path to changing your life.
So in your book, you talk about Kate growing up. If you were to look back on young Kate living in that motel, what would you tell her now?
I would tell her that absolutely anything is possible. I would tell her to turn the volume down on the little voice in her head that says, you can't do this. I tell that voice every day to keep it down because it still talks to me, but anything is absolutely possible.
Oh, that's amazing. I can envision that little Kate too, because she was probably breaking rules then.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So this is the 6th, I can't believe it, the 6th Be Bold Now. You've gone from founder of Be Bold to on the big stage as the guest speaker. I mean, how does this moment feel?
So I am so passionate about Be Bold Now. And I am incredibly honored to be speaking with the amazing women that have spoken this year and in past years. And everything that Be Bold Now represents is really my heart. Accelerating gender parity and working to support women here in this country and all around the world. I am so excited about that, and it is my passion, and I absolutely intend to be on the other side of this stage starting tomorrow.
That's awesome, Kate. So I have to ask, what comes next? I know you've got the W Marketplace. What can we expect from Kate Eisler?
So, most people start a business and then they spin it off and start a nonprofit. In true Kate Eisler form, I started a nonprofit and spun it off into a business. And so actually, as a result of, or actually at the end of last year's event, and as the country shut down and the world shut down, I was so devastated by the impact that this was having on the economics for women, and you've heard that tonight. The estimation is 257 years before we reach parity, and I just couldn't live with that. And I knew that I had to do something to put money directly into women's bank accounts. And so I co-founded with my partner, Susan Gates, we co-founded the W Marketplace, and it is an online values-driven platform to support women-owned businesses and professional services and to find nonprofits that support women. And it is taking up all of my time. And I am so excited. So I'm doing what's next. And it started after I wrote the book.
That's so awesome. I'm so excited for you. So we're here tonight. I mean, what message do you want the audience to take away from your book and from tonight?
So I think they're kind of one and the same. It's that I think that oftentimes women self-select out. We decide that we don't have the right education, we don't have the right network, we don't have enough money, or that we have too many people that depend on us and count on us, so we don't deserve to have our dreams. And I would like to tell everyone that I am the most unlikely person to have lived an amazing life and my dreams. And so if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Kate. It really is an honor, and I have loved the past 6 years. It's been an amazing journey, just utterly phenomenal.
And we've only just begun.
That's right.
Thank you,
Just
Sharon.
begun. So, moving right along to an unfortunate, but a topic that I think you're going to hear an amazing story. Over the past quarter century, there has been a profound change in the involvement of women within the criminal justice system. This is the result of more expansive law enforcement efforts, stiffer drug sentencing laws, and post-conviction barriers to reentry that uniquely affect women. The female incarcerated population stands over 7 times higher than in 1980. More than 60% of women in state prisons have a child under the age of 18. Between 1980 and 2019, the number of incarcerated women increased by more than 700%, rising from a total of 26,378 in 1980 to 222,455 in 2019. Ivy Wolf Turk was incarcerated for 4 years at Danbury Federal Prison, a former executive in the advertising and in real estate businesses. She found herself caught up in a situation with criminal consequences. She is a proud mother of 4 amazing children and the founder and director of Project Liberation. Ivy has a unique perspective on incarceration, homelessness, and reentry. Project Liberation provides space for women at all stages of the criminal justice system to feel safe, supported, empowered, and part of the community again. The vast majority of women in prison are mothers, and their crimes are nonviolent. Once labeled a criminal record, women face barriers to successfully reintegrate into their families and their communities. Project Liberation is building a movement to transform these pathways and open doors to sustainable freedom for women. Please join me in welcoming Ivy Wolf Turk.
Thank you so very much. I'm so honored to be here tonight. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I imagine that over the last year, many of you have experienced limited movement, limited resources, and freedom. And what I'd like to do tonight is invite you back to a time in 2007 with me. I was in my kitchen, smelling the remnants of the barbecue from the dinner I had made as my kids were getting ready to launch into their lives in college and grad school. I could still smell the daylilies, and as I cleaned up the kitchen, I just noticed that I wanted to spend more time enjoying my home I was going to miss the kids for a while, and my life had been so about working 7 days a week. And we were 2 weeks away from closing a deal with a hedge fund that would finally buy me my freedom. On the outside, I looked like the epitome of success, the big house, the cars, the boat, the vacations. But inside, I knew that I felt bankrupt. And as I wearily trudged up the stairs, conflicted as I was every day, waking to the phone calls from my partner and the constant pace of the crazy real estate business I was in, I went to sleep just hoping that this deal would close so soon I would be free. I was awakened by a knock at the door, and I looked at the clock, and it was 5:30 in the morning. Who could be knocking? So in my scanty little pink nightgown, I went downstairs, and with brute force, as I opened the door, 21 FBI agents stormed my home at gunpoint. A man and a woman handcuffed me and dragged me up the stairs as they ushered the kids, whose eyes were as wide as could be, popping out as if they were on slinkies. And they chained me to my toilet as they read me my rights and said, "Ivy Wolf Turk, you are under arrest." I was so cold that the urine leaking out of me was burning, and I was silent. All I could hear in my head was, "Women are to be seen and not heard. You can't say anything. They don't know you. They don't know you." As they stuffed me downstairs and into the back of a squad car, with my children watching on, I felt numb. And in that ride to New York City, through the tombs, all I could think about were all the times in my life that I knew something and I was afraid to say it, and how, in order to be safe and in order to be loved, I had been a fraud. I had spent 20 years with the most abusive business partner you could imagine, and yet I thought I needed him to navigate the world of New York real estate, to have and be the epitome of success, always knowing that inside I felt bankrupt. This day ended up in my being sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. And when I entered a sea of 200 suffering strangers, I really thought I would die. I spent the first year longing for all the things that I didn't have anymore, and with nowhere to look outside myself and no way to define any semblance of success, I was forced to look inside myself. And that was when I found all those moments in my heart that I had longed to speak out, to speak up, but didn't feel that I mattered. And I created a version of success that was fraudulent. How ironic that I had manifested being imprisoned for the very way that I had been imprisoned all my life. And in prison, among all of these suffering women, I started to notice that we had a common denominator. I was able, everyone there works, there's such limited freedom, and I realized that past age and past race and past socioeconomic background, as I taught GED, and then saw that the shame and the blame and the inability to stand in one's worth for fear of not being loved and not being safe transcended all of us. It didn't matter if it was the abusive business partner or the baby daddy that was beating her or the drug-dealing boyfriend. It didn't matter. We shared this common denominator, this lack of self-worth. And so I started to add, I had to, of course, ask permission, but I started to add to our curriculum and take things that I had known that were helping me to really listen, to pause, to listen to my real inner wants and desires past all the shoulds and all the have-tos. And I started adding yoga and meditation and journaling to the curriculum. And I'm proud to say that during my third year, I received a letter that the very folks who had gone to the government to begin with had sued one another. And through that case, it was discovered that the crime that was committed was not exactly the crime I had been sentenced for. And I received a letter from my sentencing judge informing me that she had recommended that I would be released early. Having been imprisoned in my outwardly successful life, long before my years in Danbury, and being like every woman that walked through those doors, I dreamed of that day, that freedom day, that I would come home. And I knew in my soul that this time it was different. It was almost as if Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz had floated down into my subterranean 7x7 cube and said, "Girl, you had the power all along. You just didn't know it." And so I, being so much more fortunate than most, was greeted outside those steely gates by my 4 children and my puppy, and off we went. I was homeless, I was penniless, and I was destitute, but I had way more than most of the sisters I left behind. I had me, and I had the love of these remarkable children. And I realized then that a stint in federal prison shouldn't be the way a woman finds her worth. I arrived at the halfway house in a very bad neighborhood of New York, the Bronx. And on the first day, having nothing, I had no clothing, I had no money, except for a few dollars that the kids had left me with, no cell phone. I was allowed to go out to buy some toiletries. It's now November of 2013, and I find myself on the ground in pain. As I laid there wondering how I would get up, how did I land here? Will they send me back to prison? I have no health insurance. I have no way to call for help. My shoulder, which had been dislocated, popped back into place, and I realized I'd been mugged, and the money that the kids had given me for toothpaste was gone. I crawled back to the halfway house, and as I sat weeping on my bed, I thought, Ivy, if a woman like you, a woman who comes from privilege, who has the love of these kids, who had a career and an education, can't make it here, what are the sisters you left behind supposed to do? And it was in that moment that I realized I had spent a career living backwards, marginalizing women and families as a real estate developer, and it wasn't lost on me that I had become one of those women. And so I knew in that moment that I had to take a life of experience and transmute it into a life of service. And I went to the head of the halfway house and said, I want to go back to school. I want to learn how to rewrite this story and give whatever tools I learn to every woman that I don't want to leave behind. And so, through a lot of rigor and craziness, I was able to get out of the halfway house. I went back to school, and 1 year later, in November of 2014, I became a certified professional life coach. And I started resiliency coaching, a private practice, working with women to help them rewrite their stories and find their real values, not those they had learned or thought they should or had to live, but the ones that they wanted to live. And then I thought, I really want to create a program just like I did in prison. And I want to fuse this new life coaching, this beautiful way to become present with who you are and dare to dream about who you want to be with journaling and all the other ancient and modern modalities. And I created a curriculum and was fortunate enough to bring it to an organization, one of the only organizations that served underserved women who were justice involved. I spent a year trying on this curriculum with 100 women in 2 homeless shelters and watched miracles occur as we partnered together and worked through all of these modalities, and they tried on the tools. They found parts of themselves they had never known. They worked through trauma that had been re-traumatized through the horrors of isolation and degradation and humiliation in prison. And I watched them climb out of those homeless shelters into permanent housing and into jobs they never dared to dream. And most importantly, reunite with children that were in foster care or with baby daddies that were threatening their custody, and resume lives that were authentic and whole. And something very unfortunate happened at that point. Because in New York, you're an at-will hire and an at-will fire. One day, a year later, I was fired for no reason. And as a woman on probation, an agency who could kick one of their very own to the curb and think they could take her curriculum, knowing that she'd have to report to probation and it may even mean going back to prison, made me more frightened than you could imagine. All of a sudden, I was that woman again on the streets of Fordham Road in the Bronx, wondering, how did I land here? What am I going to do? I have to call probation, which I did, and I was instructed to come in the next morning. I shook my way to 500 Pearl Street. I didn't know how I was going to pay rent. What would I do? Why did they fire me? How could I go forward? It seemed like everything was so successful, and yet here I was again. I walked in, and my probation officer looked at me and he said, "Miss Wolf Turk, we've decided you've done some good service. We're going to let you go out on your own." And I started to weep. What do you mean go out on my own? How am I going to find a place to do my work? How am I going to afford advertising to the women? What am I going to do? And he said, "I have faith in you, and so does your judge. Go out and leave no woman behind." And so the following night, I had my first speaking engagement, and I wanted to cancel it. It was in a room of well-heeled women at the top of their professions, in every profession from the arts to the judiciary. I didn't know any of them, and I called the moderator and said, "I can't do it. I've been fired. I'm a wreck." And she said, "Ivy, the show must go on. You have to speak. This has been advertised for months, and these women are expecting to see you. There's no time. You have to come." And so that night, for the first time, I told my real story. And in the question and answer period of that speech, a woman stood up, and the moderator said, "Loretta, you're our last speaker. We've gone a half an hour over. Ivy's been gracious, but our host needs to clean up and go to bed." And this woman said, "Hello, Ivy, dear. My name is Judge Loretta Preska." And in that moment, I thought the marshals were coming out of the closet to rearrest me. I had just told the truth about the horrors of the system, the inequities, and the power mongering that I had experienced, and I believed that I was now done. Instead, she climbed over the 100 women in the sunken Park Avenue living room, and she put her arm on my shoulder and said, "My dear, I have 3 things to say to you. I commend your courage. I commend this concept of there being specific pathways that lead women to justice involvement that are very different than men. I'm very interested to learn more. And last but not least, I'd like to help you." She was the boss of my sentencing judge. And in that audience, 12 other women stood up and said, "And so would I. What do you need?" And they took me out for dinner, and one became my lawyer, and one Two became my board members, and one helped me develop a logo, and I was liberated, and Project Liberation was born. In February of 2016, I took the curriculum on the road and started serving women with a toolkit to help them reclaim and rewrite their stories so they could learn to be who they are and do what they love, so they could trust the process of truly living an authentic life, a liberated life, and have what they need. And I'm proud to tell you all tonight that almost 400 women have gone through this program and have been reunited with their children, have gone back to school, have found careers they never, ever imagined themselves in, have found permanent housing, have climbed out of homeless shelters, and are thriving joyously and sustainably in their lives. And not only that, as they've rewritten their stories, they have become advocates, first for themselves, finding their voice, finding what's important to them, and making their greatest adversity their greatest curriculum for growth. And that leads me to the women in my private practice, because it wasn't lost on me that not everyone has to do a stint in prison to find that they're stuck. And what I'd like to offer all of you tonight are 3 ways that I learned through limited freedom, through limited movement, and through limited resources, not that dissimilar from where we all have been in this year of COVID. And for any of you who are feeling stuck in your lives in one way or another, as I like to say, imprisoned in your lives in one way or another, it's so important to simply do these 3 things. To first pause. It doesn't matter if it's on the toilet in the morning, but to take a few minutes for yourself each day. And then secondly, bring your curiosity. How am I feeling? What am I noticing? What is it that I'm longing for and unhappy and feeling stuck in? And knowing that that's where step 3 comes in, going for the jugular, really, really examining what it is your heart is telling you. Not what your head says you should or have to do, but what your heart really would do if you had no fear, if you had no shame, if you had all the things. And so tonight, I invite you to take a chance, to make a choice, to be that change you wish to see in your life. And for all of you listening, I am going to be bold and offer you an opportunity, because when anyone wants to get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, sometimes you need support. And so for each of you listening tonight, I, in service of my experience, would like to offer you a free discovery session with me to really explore beyond these 3 simple tools and see where we land, and see if I can serve you in getting unstuck or unimprisoned from the place so you can live a joyous and liberated life too. You can find out about this later on in our program. It'll be offered in the marketplace, and Kate will explain it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ivy, for sharing your amazing story. What would we do if we weren't afraid? I hope everyone takes advantage of Ivy's offer. The critical work that she's doing in helping to build a movement to open doors to a sustainable freedom for women in the criminal justice system is just simply amazing. Talk about bold steps. So thank you again, Ivy. It's a strong reminder of how one woman can inspire bold action to improve the lives of other women, their families, and their communities. We want to thank all of our amazing speakers and musical artists for sharing their personal stories with us. And thank you to our audience for joining us this evening. While we wish you were here in person, we hope you had a great time.
Thank you to our sponsors, Kaiser Health, Microsoft, Microsoft Alumni, SAP, Seattle Chocolates, the Bellevue Collection, and the W Marketplace. We also have to thank our amazing team, astronauts and poets who are responsible for the incredible creative and dialogue, our event production team, and our music supervisor, Michael Smith, without whom this evening wouldn't be possible. Don't forget to take advantage of the collection of exclusive offers curated by the W Marketplace. These are available to you for the next 48 hours only. Alita is providing organic sun stick for you to take advantage of, and Ivy Turk and Seattle are providing free introductory sessions for coaching. And then we have Ascania, who's also offering a discount for their delicious chocolate. For those of you who attended the warm-up with Pam prior to the show, remember what Pam said to you. You are already bold. Keep bold, don't wait for some time. Think, what is one micro bold step you can take? Bold steps to beget bold steps. And before you know it, it will become a daily habit.
If you're looking for inspiration and what you can do and how you can take action, go to BeBoldNow.com. Click on the Take Action, and you'll find a list of businesses that are in support of women. They're women-owned and looking for your involvement. They're looking for your donations of time, materials, or your patronage. This is a starting point. We all have a list of businesses that we add to every day. So visit Be Bold Now and get involved with one of these organizations. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And please share your stories on BeBoldNow.com. And the most important, mark your calendars, because next year, March 3rd, 2022, we're going to do this again, and I hope that we can broadcast and be live. So thank you.
So, finally, before we close the show, we have one final treat for you. The wonderful and talented Scarlett Park. Scarlett is a singer, songwriter, and entrepreneur who returns to Be Bold Now for the 3rd year. Outside of music, Scarlett is a rampant advocate for local artists and empowers their success via her company, Park Avenue. So from myself, Kate, and Nikki, thank you for watching. We'll see you next year. Now enjoy Scarlett Park.
Hello, my name is Scarlett Park, and I just want to say thank you for joining this year's Be Bold International Women's Day event, virtual style. This song is called Rise Up by Andra Day. You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we're gonna walk it out and move mountains. We're gonna walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. Yeah, I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, when the silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know
I promise you we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, all we need is hope. And for that we have each other. And for that we have each other. We will rise up. We will rise up. We will rise up. Oh, we will rise. We will rise. And I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, spite of the fake. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. Yeah, I'll rise up, rise like a wave. I'll rise up, rise unafraid. I'll rise up for you. For you, for you, rise up. Thank you.